Welcome back to the Dean Obeidallah Show. Joining us now, our friend Rula Jabreal, all the way from Spain, where she'll explain in a second why she's there. As an award-winning journalist who specializes in foreign policy, visiting professor at the University of Miami, and does a great job on cable news and on my show and other shows talking about what's going on in the world. Rula, nice to see you. Thanks for spending time with us from Madrid.
Of course. Thank you for having me. I love being with you.
Thank you, my friend.
Dean.
So let's talk about something that's not fun and that's heartbreaking. You know, over the weekend, Sunday into Monday, there was the Israeli military killed 45 people in tent city there, and including children who were burned alive.
Yeah.
And Netanyahu said, "Oh, it was a mistake. We're sorry." Last night, there was more shelling and airstrikes. The same tent city, they killed 37 people outside of the southern, in the Rafah, pummeling the same areas that they did Sunday. So, what's your reaction to what's going on here?
That is precisely Israel's response to the ICC and to the ICJ to kill more people. They bombed Rafah immediately after the ICJ ordered Israel to halt its operation in Rafah. They bombed Rafah 60 times in 48 hours. We are dealing with a rogue state at this point, with a fascist state that is adamant about exterminating Palestinians. So the whole BS that it was a mistake, they repeated the same mistake in Mawasi last night. Mawasi is the area that they designated as a safe zone. There's no safe zone in Gaza. We, with our own eyes, the world saw with their own eyes, the butchering, the savagery of dropping 2,000-pound ton of a bomb on our refugee camps, on people living in refugees. According to international law, even if they were Hamas operatives, and we don't know if there are, because They always dismiss everything as like there's terrorists. For them, all Palestinians are terrorists. For them, all Palestinians are subhuman animals. They call them this way. And even if they were Hamas operatives, there is, and according to international humanitarian law, there's no proportionality. You cannot kill 50 people just to kill one Hamas operative. I think what Israel is showing the world, how rogue they are, and they keep insisting that they are above international legality. This is what we're dealing with. And by the way, Dean, we're not even talking about the West Bank, what they're doing in the West Bank. While they're killing people in Rafah, they're killing people in Jenin, Nablus, Tulkarem, Ramallah, everywhere. Now it's a war on Palestine and on Palestinians.
It's heartbreaking. And what we saw today, by the way, CNN did an analysis of the munitions that were used in the strike over the weekend. And it said that they came from the United States of America.
Of course.
They were supplied by us. And that they also CNN geolocated video showing tents in flames in the aftermath of the strike. It was the area called Kuwait Peace Camp 1, supposed to be safe. So our weapons are being used. We know this before, but this specific strike, where the Biden administration said, don't use our weaponry in Rafah, well, they're using it, they're killing him, and Biden administration said they're not changing their policy towards Israel. He announced it yesterday, John Kirby. So now what?
So this is the moral bankruptcy of the Biden administration. He is willing to jeopardize America's democracy, give the country back to Donald Trump, just to defend the criminal, the war criminal who is Bibi Netanyahu. And Dean, one of the incredible, every weapon that's been used against Palestine is an American weapon. Every shell, every missile, every Apache helicopter, everything they're using is an American made, but also whatever Israel is using today in terms of total impunity, it's because of the American position on the war in Gaza. They basically crossed his red line, Biden red line, on multiple occasions. Netanyahu doesn't care about Biden. He is happily defying Biden, humiliating Biden, embarrassing him, but also he doesn't care about him. He wants Trump to win the elections. Mm-hmm. He campaigned, putting posters all over the country with Donald Trump. He is very happy with fascists. He's very happy with real anti-Semites like Viktor Orban and others. He's very happy with Donald Trump, who will allow him to violate international law. So at this point, I think the Democratic Party we need to really ask Biden in a strong way. He needs really to allow somebody else to run for election. Otherwise, it's not only we're killing in the thousands Palestinians, he is killing America's democracy, literally killing America's democracy because of his position on Gaza.
And I'm telling you, Rula Jabreal. And Rula, in contrast to what the U.S. is doing by saying, well, it was unfortunate and it was horrible. You know, the idea that it's heartbreaking and all that kind of stuff. The EU has been much louder. Even Germany, who
Yes.
has a history of
Yes.
defending Israel because of the Holocaust. So they've been very defensive. The Vice Chancellor, Robert Habeck, said Israel's actions are incompatible with international law. In Italy,
Yeah.
Guido Crosetto, who is the Italian defense minister, said
Defense
Israel's
minister.
war is no longer justifiable. And also in Macron in France said there are no such places in Rafah for Palestinians. The operations must stop. I call for full respect for international law and the immediate ceasefire. So we're alienating ourselves from our Western allies
Yes.
to defend Netanyahu.
Absolutely. And Dean, Spain, Norway, Ireland, Belgium, and many others are recognizing the Palestinian states. This is one of the unintended consequences of this war, that now Israel, after being embraced by the world and have the sympathy of the world, they obliterated, they pulverized that sentiment because of their criminality and because they're not only violating international law, they're threatening the judges and the persecutors and of the ICC. They're spying on them. They're acting like a mafia state, like a thuggish state. I mean, at this point, it is clear who Bibi Netanyahu, but also Israelis. And, you know, one of the things, the elements, I'm in Europe and I cannot underestimate and I cannot understate how much resentment towards not only Israel, towards the United States.
Right.
I mean, European allies are abhorred, are disgusted, literally disgusted. That's the word they have been using with me privately with the Biden administration. They think that Blinken and Biden and Sullivan lost their mind by backing Netanyahu the same way. They are terrified because they understand what Trump will do. He will withdraw from NATO. He will give Ukraine to Russia. He will basically throw Europe under the bus. He will undermine them at every turn. And Biden is aware of all of that. And he is driving the whole world to the brink of the abyss. This is collective suicide. Biden his legacy will be not only the destruction of Gaza, the destruction of the Western order that was created post-World War II.
And I'm chatting with our friend Rula Jabreal. Rula, you touched on something that got press in Europe a great deal. The Guardian did amazing reporting yesterday. The former head of the Mossad, Israel's foreign intelligence agency, threatened the chief prosecutor with the International Criminal Court in a series of meetings, trying to tell them to abandon investigation to war crimes. It's not the current investigation, it was a past investigation. But what have you heard in Europe about this? I imagine it gets more press there because it has to do with Europe.
Not only that, I've been talking also to judges, to people who are elected at the European Parliament. And this is Yossi Cohen. Yossi Cohen is the guy that was sent to negotiate with Hamas, that was sent by Netanyahu to negotiate with Hamas 3 weeks before October 7, to convince the Qataris to finance Hamas. So he is the same man that's been sent to finance Hamas, convince the Qatari to continue their financing of Hamas, while he was for years threatening persecutors and their families, by the way, not only basically the persecutors. He's threatening their own family, saying, we don't want anything to happen to you and your family. Stay away from it. This is the kind of language that we heard from home, mafia, mob boss. I mean, this is the kind of language that war criminals use, not so-called democracies or allies with democracy. So I think we are at a crossroad now, Dean. And I think in this very delicate moment, either you are pro-humanity and pro-legality, or you are pro this genocidal war. And clearly Biden I don't know what's happening in his delusional head, but I think Biden decided to tie his fate and the fate of American democracy with Netanyahu, with Smotrich, with Ben Gvir, who are proud fascists, but also very proud to violate international law and American law. I mean, how can you win after in 2016, Biden was elected because he convinced younger Americans that he will stand for the rule of law, even against allies, when he mentioned Saudi Arabia. But now he is saying, after he said for Ukraine, the difference between us and Russia and Hamas, that we stand, we defend international legality and international humanitarian law. And today he's saying these rules don't apply to us or our allies. Good luck getting elected on those terms.
You know, it's interesting. I recall maybe 3 weeks ago we chatted. 3 weeks ago, maybe a month ago,
Yes, a month
and
ago.
you were critical of Biden, but your tone has changed, and that you were more than
I am
critical now.
angry.
Right?
I
I
am
can sense
angry.
that. And what has prompted that, so everyone can understand it, because you follow this so
Babies,
closely. Yeah.
beheaded babies, beheaded babies, babies torched, families, women burned alive. Uh, what's really, I mean, I was walking in a European city. I
Mhm.
saw a Palestinian friend. We said hello, and we start sobbing. We
Wow.
start literally sobbing. I have messages from friends, Palestinians in the diaspora around Europe, who tell me that they wake up in the night crying because we are watching children being burned alive. I don't want to speak as a journalist and analyst now. I would like to speak as a human being and as a mother. And Biden was the guy that was elected because he was an empathetic grandfather and a father. We understood his empathy. He has no empathy for Palestinian babies. He does not care that Palestinian babies are being butchered, beheaded, burned alive, torched, incinerated in tents with his weapons. And the fact that he's unwilling and unable to change the policies not only makes me angry and disappointed, it outrages my core, who I am as a human being, because then you really are telling us that you are green lighting all of this. You're endorsing this directly. Silence is complicity. He is not only silent, but he is backing these policies and protecting these policies.
Yeah, it's far more than silence. We're arming the person committing the war crimes, and it's
But he's
kind of.
unwilling even to condemn the burning of babies in tents. Not only, he said that he's still, he's been silent for 48 hours since it happened. And he's unwilling to change his policy, which means that he will continue arming and slaughtering Palestinians. But guess what? You're slaughtering your own democracy. It will come back to haunt America for generations to come. Generations to come.
So
And he might not care.
I don't know what his mindset. I have no insight. I can't tell you. I have no clue what's going on with him. But do you think, there's as we try to make sense of all of this, that this conflict is different than the past ones? That, like in 2015, there was a bad conflict between Israel and Hamas, but it wasn't this bad in terms of death toll, and we didn't see it with the immediacy that we see everything now. TikTok, Instagram, Facebook. There's more media outlets that are actually less biased and actually just telling the truth, and we see it.
Yeah.
And I think, because this seems so different to me, and I can hear it in your tone as well, than the past conflicts. It's also, we've never seen these many Palestinian women and children, innocent men, killed in 7 months, and the devastation in Gaza. The UN, one of the heads of the UN officials said it's hell on earth. Just 2 days ago, said it's hell on earth in Gaza. I've never seen this devastation of everything: education system, infrastructure, hospitals, everything.
Yeah, I covered the Iraq War.
Mm-hmm.
I covered the Syrian War. I covered the Lebanese 2006 war. I was in Lebanon. I never seen in my life anything like this, Dean. Never. But the difference between 2015 and this war, this is a genocidal war. The Israelis, this government decided the only solution for them, and I've been warning about this for years. I testified at the European Parliament a year ago, exactly this month, in May last year, 2023. And I warned that there's a shift in Israeli society. You're dealing with not only with a far-right government, with a normalization of violence, but also the idea that you can be safe as Israeli if you exterminate all Palestinians. Before, the whole idea is we need to occupy the Palestinians because we are safe only if they are under military occupation. Today, the prominent, the most dominant, the most popular idea in Israel, we need to kill all Palestinians to be safe. This is a popular mandate for genocide. And I'm telling you, Dean, it's not going to stop in Gaza. They're not going to end this slaughterhouse, this butchery, this genocide, this extermination campaign in Gaza. They're already importing element of it to the West Bank. And I don't know if you have family in Palestine. I have family
I do in the
everywhere.
West Bank.
I have family in the West Bank, in Jericho. Mm-hmm. I have families in Ramallah. I have family in East Jerusalem, occupied East Jerusalem. I have family in Haifa. I have friends in Gaza. I know a woman, the founder of an orphanage. I mean, we have 20,000 babies in Gaza who are orphans. We have thousands, and there's no hospitals. By the way, the death rate from the bombing will be equal to the death rate from pandemics, infections. And I can never forget an advisor to the Minister of Defense, Gallant, wrote an article in December arguing in Hodot Achonot, which is an Israeli newspaper, and he said we need to trigger pandemics, we need to use more famine because we need to exterminate them, not only with bombs and bullets. We need to really thinning the population through pandemics, through epidemics, and through starvation. He was advocating for genocide, endorsing genocide. Guess what? 2 days after, Smotrich tweeted saying, I agree with everything that this general called Giora stated in his article. We need to look at the Israeli reality where soldiers are uploading pictures of themselves committing war crimes and understand that Israel of today is different from 2015 or 14 or 8. This Israel of today is a genocidal Israel and will not be stopped unless we sanction it. Unless we sanction it, and we stop it not only with sanctions, isolations, and with accountability. I want to see Benjamin Netanyahu at the ICC. They should issue an arrest warrants for him, for Gallant, and not only them. I would argue that other people are involved, but let's start with these two.
When you look at what's going on, and just so you know, Rula mentions Smotrich and Ben-Gvir. Ben-Gvir, that's his last name. I think it's Itamar Ben-Gvir, and that
Itamar, yes,
Itamar. That
they call him in Palestine Hmar Ben-Gvir.
Hamar Ben-Gvir, the jackass. These people are extreme right wing. I think, in the view of Ben-Gvir and Smotrich and Netanyahu, this is a religious holy war on some level.
Yes.
Again, this is really what it's about now. We've gotten to that point where Christians and Muslims are not safe in this world where they live, because this to them was an existential threat, and the only answer is to kill all that are not part of their group. And I'm not saying that's a mainstream Jewish position or a mainstream Israeli position, but this far right, I think
it is mainstream.
You think so?
I think
in Israel?
I disagree. Actually, this is mainstream. Smotrich, Ben-Gvir is the dominant thinking and ideology in Israel today. When 68% of the Israeli believe starvation is a legitimate warfare tactic, this is a popular mandate for genocide. When 65% believe that they did not kill enough Palestinians, they need to kill more. It's not enough Palestinians, that they need to kill more. This is a popular mandate for genocide. And I believe if we examine the poll further, you could see that it doesn't only apply to Palestinians in Gaza. In 2018, Dean, Smotrich stood in parliament, pointed to a Palestinian Israeli elected official and said to him, your presence is a mistake. You should not be here. We did not finish the job. In 1948, Ben-Gurion left people like you. We will make sure to finish the job. That's what he said in parliament. And guess what? He became a minister 2 years after.
And Ben-Gvir was convicted in an Israeli court in 2007 for supporting terrorism against Arab Christians and Muslims. Convicted, folks, in an Israeli court, not an abstention. Like, he was a defendant. They found him guilty of supplying support for terrorism, and the terrorism against Arabs and against Arab Christians and Muslims. And people understand, when they talk about Israeli Arabs, they are Christians and they are Muslims, and they are not wanted. And on some parts of society, we're okay with them over time, but now the radicalization of more of these Israeli societies, here's where we stand. So, and in fact,
he threatened the former prime minister of Israel, who was then later killed. He threatened
Yitzhak Rabin.
He went to the car of Yitzhak Rabin, took a piece of it. He said, sooner or later, we will find you. We will come for you. What is he trying to say? He's trying to say, even people who dialogue with the Palestinians, who negotiate with the Palestinians, need to be killed. That's the underlying message. This is who we're dealing with. This is who is in government today. I hope our American media, who examine everything Hamas says, everything the Iranians say, that can start examining the mass radicalization and fascism of Israeli society today.
And I don't know if they will. They just don't. Maybe Mehdi will. Mehdi Hassan, our buddy. But, I don't think MS or CNN, although online things are better. you can write things online, even for mainstream publications. On air, it's different, but on air,
can I tell you, even CNN, I appreciate, sometimes they're like, sometimes they do things where they call, they make mistakes. We all acknowledge that, but I must say that CNN International has been doing a fabulous job. They have incredible people at CNN International, and I appreciate the work they do, because the exposés, many of the war crime exposés came also from CNN International. And
CNN.com. What CNN domestic is one thing, but .com has been fabulous. I've been amazed at that. So what is, tell people, you mentioned earlier, Spain, Ireland, and Norway. I was away last week. They recognized Palestine as a state. What's the significance of that? And now we're talking about 140 plus countries recognizing Palestine as a state?
Yes. 140 something countries recognize Palestine as a state. It's a symbolic gesture, but they are affirming the principle that under international law, Palestine and Palestinians deserve sovereignty, deserve freedom, deserve a state. I am honored to be, invited to these countries to actually speak with incredible politicians, left-wing politicians, by the way. These are the Democrats, and they keep winning because they defend the principle of international legality. This is the difference between Biden and Pedro Sanchez. Pedro Sanchez won the elections by double digits, affirming his victory against the far right, the fascists of Vox and others, because he defended international legality and he defended democracy at home and overseas. Biden will butcher America's democracy because he keeps insisting that Israel is above international law. And there's a debate in Europe, Dean, and the debate in Europe, which the overwhelming majority in Europe believe that we need to judge Israel not based on what the Europeans did to Jews during World War II, during the Holocaust. We need to judge Israel today for what Israel is doing and the war crime they're committing in Gaza and elsewhere against Palestinians. These are separate ships. The dialogue in America is like, we need to give an exception because World War II and the Holocaust, whatever. Either international law applies to everyone impartially, equally, or you basically undermine it because Russia will use that exception to do whatever they want.
And they're doing that. So last question is, the Speaker of the House here, Mike Johnson, the MAGA guy, is inviting Netanyahu to speak to Congress. And Chuck Schumer's debating what he's going to do. If Netanyahu actually came to speak in Congress, do you think there'd be mass protests in Washington, D.C.?
It's going to be, between you and me, it's going to be probably equivalent to the Iraq war protests. Millions of people in the street, because it's like telling Americans who, I believe 80% of Democrats, 55% of all Americans, not only want a ceasefire, believe Israel is committing war crimes, believe Israel is violating international law, believe that Israel's response is irrational, is illegal, and it's crazy. So despite that, to invite that man who campaigned against, by the way, against Barack Obama, who hated the first black president, insulted him, who always lied, who is viewed as corrupt war criminal, to invite him, it's like telling Americans the F word. Not only you're endorsing policies that most Americans abhor, so you're shoving down their throat policies they don't agree with. Most Americans, Dean, I talk to students, and most of them like, they don't have free education, they don't have free healthcare, but Congress is willing to send billions of dollars to butcher babies in Gaza. So people are outraged, not only by the war crimes that are being committed, are outraged that America is spending billions to finance a genocidal war, while themselves, their quality of life is declining. They cannot have healthcare. They cannot have health insurance. Inflation is skyrocketing. And yes, you can have a better economy, but in Europe, they have free healthcare. They happen to be actually free education, and they're unwilling, and they're willing to stand for the rule of law. This is the difference between Democrats in Europe and Democrats in America. You're willing to send how many billions of dollars they're sending to Israel? $26 billion on top of $4 billion, the $28 billion. It's a joke and a half.
It's unreal to see this play out. And today
it's criminal.
We saw that
it's criminal.
The Israelis said the war is going to go for 7 more months. which is perfectly lines up with January, which is kind of remarkable. And I think they're counting on Trump winning. And then when Trump gets in, they're going to end the war. And so you see, Trump comes in and we end the war. That's what it really felt like to me. We'll see how many months and how many more Palestinian women, children, and men, innocent men, die in this heartbreak. But Rula, thanks for taking time in Spain when you're there doing your diplomatic work and your foreign policy work to join us. I really appreciate it. I look forward to chatting with you in the future, my friend.
Thank you so much. Thank you very, very much, Dean. And I must say, your show is so important for all of the listeners. Listen to Dean because he have the most incredible guests, and also you have access to information that you would never have access to that information anywhere else. Thank you, Dean.
I agree. Thank you, Rula. Have a great day.